Okay, so this is going to be a video that highlights the things regarding the Russia and Durham investigations that were not emphasized in the news. Either they weren't covered in the news or they were not very thoroughly discussed in the news. And I'm just going to point out the things through this timeline of the investigations that I think really cuts to the core of the issues. And every document that I show you in here, I'm going to link it below in the video description. So even though I'm going to touch on just one quick thing in each of these, you can actually feel free to read through the documents in their entirety using the links that I provide in the video description. I'm also going to be careful not to break any YouTube guidelines with what we can and cannot say in the video, so it is what it is. First things first, let's take a look at one of the Podesta WikiLeaks emails. So basically what kicked off all of this Russian interference stuff is the fact that throughout 2016, there were a couple leaks from WikiLeaks, a couple batches of emails regarding John Podesta, who was Hillary Clinton's campaign manager for that 2016 election, as well as Hillary Clinton herself had emails that leaked. And the entire Trump-Russia collusion investigation presupposes that these WikiLeaks emails are real. But the question is, how did WikiLeaks get the emails? That's what these investigations focus on. So that's important to note, is that these are real. They're confirmed by Hillary Clinton on video that they're real. During the 2016 campaigns between Hillary and Trump, Chris Wallace was moderating one of the debates, and he even asks her, how about those emails? And she claims, Russia, Russia, Russia. So let's take a look at one WikiLeaks email from her campaign manager, John Podesta, from February 2016, because it says something that might be very important to all of this. So this is wikileaks.org, Podesta emails, email ID 56595. And if you've ever used the searchable archive in WikiLeaks for the Podesta emails or the Clinton emails, they're very difficult to use. Even if you're searching exact keywords, it's not very good. So if you know an email you want, it's almost easier to just Google search the exact text of the email and just let it connect you to WikiLeaks. It's a better search than trying to use the actual website. But anyways, this email is from February 2016, and it includes someone from the Hillary Clinton campaign, hillaryclinton.com again, and john.podesta@gmail.com. So this is why it's one of the John Podesta emails. And what they're discussing is this: who is in charge of the Trump Swift Boat project needs to be ready, funded, and unleashed when we decide. So the question is, why is the Clinton campaign discussing that they have a Trump Swift Boat project that they're waiting to release? What is a Swift Boat project? And why are they planning that against Trump? Swift boating, as one word, as hyphenated, or as two words, is an unfair or untrue political attack. And this is the origin of that term. So basically what this is saying is, and I'm not saying this is what they did, I'm just saying there happens to be an authentic John Podesta email claiming that they are planning a Trump Swift Boat project in February 2016. So this is before the election. Let's go to our timeline again. And then in July 2016, Seth Rich dies. Now, this is only important because the two main theories are Hillary was hacked by Russia, and then the emails were released through WikiLeaks. Hillary and John Podesta were hacked by Russia, and then they were released through WikiLeaks. And the other main theory is that Seth Rich, who worked for the DNC, he took the emails himself and released them to WikiLeaks. I'm only mentioning this because there's going to be a couple points in here that may help shed some light as to which of these two things might be a more realistic conclusion. I'm not concluding anything. I'm just presenting to you these things from the primary sources themselves as much as I can. So anyways, the mainstream narrative is that Seth Rich was killed in a robbery, and on his dead body they found his phone, his wallet, and his watch. The importance of this, by the way, is that his valuables were still on his body when he was dead from the robbery. July 2016, former CIA Director John Brennan, he briefs Obama on Hillary's alleged plan to, quote, vilify Donald Trump regarding Russian collusion. And this comes to us from a letter that was released during the 2020 election debates. I think it was during like the second debate. That's around September 2020 is when the Director of National Intelligence released this report, and it details this information. We also have John Brennan's handwritten notes that talks about these things. But let's take a look at this letter and see it for ourselves. So this is from judiciary.senate.gov, and it is the Director of National Intelligence, September 2020. John Ratcliffe was Trump's DNI. And again, just as a refresher, the DNI aggregates all of the information from the intelligence communities. So the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, the various branches of military, all these intelligence communities funnel their information up through John Ratcliffe, and he makes sure that they are sharing only the information they need, but they're sharing what's necessary. So this guy is privy to some of the most sensitive information that our country has access to. So in this note from the DNI to Lindsey Graham, who's a senator, and that's why this is on Senate.gov, it's in reference to Lindsey Graham's request for information related to the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation. Now, the Crossfire Hurricane investigation is the FBI's investigation into Trump-Russia collusion. The code name was Crossfire Hurricane. This second bullet point says, according to handwritten notes from CIA Director John Brennan, this was a former CIA director who did not like Donald Trump, and his handwritten notes themselves have also been declassified at this point. We have here a quote of him briefing Obama when he was president in July 2016. It says, an alleged approval by Hillary Clinton in July of 2016 of a proposal from one of her foreign policy advisors to vilify Donald Trump by stirring up a scandal claiming interference by Russian security services. This is important that Obama and Brennan know about this. So let's go back to our timeline. September 2016, this is the next bullet point in this DNI letter that we were just looking at, because Brennan then briefs FBI Director James Comey on Hillary's intent to distract from her private email server scandal by alleging Trump-Russia collusion in the election. That's not me saying this. That's the former CIA director. So we get down to this next bullet point. In September of 2016, so U.S. intelligence officials forwarded an investigative referral to the FBI, Director James Comey. And what did that say? It was regarding candidate Hillary Clinton's approval of a plan concerning Donald Trump and Russian hackers hampering elections. Why? It was a means of distracting the public from her use of a private email server. So we have in February of 2016, it could have been earlier than this, but at least as far back as February 2016, we have Hillary's campaign planning an untrue political attack against Donald Trump, in their own words. We have the CIA director, the President of the United States, and FBI Director James Comey. They're all under the understanding that she is planning this scandal claiming interference by Russia and Trump as a means of distracting the public from her use of a private email server. So let's go back to our timeline. Then in August 2016, so all of this is happening before the election. So Hillary's planning that Trump and Russia were colluding as her emails are leaking. We get into August 2016. And Julian Assange, founder of WikiLeaks, accidentally claims on live TV that Seth Rich was the leak to WikiLeaks, and then he tries to walk his statement back. So I'm going to try to find this video. It's like 2 minutes long. I think it's still on YouTube. Basically, someone's interviewing Julian Assange, and they say, are you sitting on any information that might be considered an October surprise leading into the 2016 election? And his response is, WikiLeaks doesn't sit on anything. We just try to protect the sources that leaked to us. And then Julian Assange goes on to say, for instance, there was a 27-year-old who worked for the DNC who was shot to death a few weeks ago. The interviewer then says, oh, you're talking about Seth Rich. I think that was just a robbery. Julian Assange says, well, it was inconclusive. And then the interviewer was smart enough to say, so you're saying Seth Rich was the leak? At which point Julian Assange backtracks and says, no, I'm not saying that. But very clearly in context, that's what he said. Whether he meant to say it or he didn't mean to say it, or even if it was an accident, whether it's true or not, that's up in the air. It's just a data point to keep in mind. Get to November 2016. You have the 2016 presidential election. December 2017. So after the email scandal came out, the DNC hired Crowdstrike to do an investigation to figure out who took the emails, who gave them to WikiLeaks, how did this happen? And I'm going to show you later on when we look at the Mueller report that publicly, Crowdstrike is very happy to talk about how it's Russia, Russia, Russia all day long. But let's take a look privately at what he says on the record during his House Intelligence interview. He claims that there was actually no hack at all. So this is Shawn Henry, the president of Crowdstrike. Let's take a quick look at their website. This is crowdstrike.com. Whoops. This is crowdstrike.com. Shawn Henry is the president of Crowdstrike, and that's really all we needed this website for, so that you could see this guy is the president of Crowdstrike before we get into DNI.gov as Director of National Intelligence, U.S. House of Representatives. This is an interview of Shawn Henry. That's this guy right here. How do we know that this is an interview of the Shawn Henry of Crowdstrike? Because you keep scrolling down. Crowdstrike. So this is the guy. And we need to look at page 31 to 32, because at the bottom of page 31 is this interview with Shawn Henry where they start to ask him, do you know the date in which the Russians exfiltrated the data from the DNC? Now, exfiltration means hack or to electronically move or electronically transfer the information. Basically he's saying, do you know the date the Russians hacked the emails from the DNC? Shawn Henry says, yes, I do. I just have to think about it. I do know. I mean, it's in our report, and I think the committee has. So he says, to the best of your recollection, when would that have been? So Shawn Henry has his legal counsel next to him, it looks like. He says, counsel just reminded me that as it relates to the DNC, we have indicators that the data was exfiltrated. We did not have concrete evidence that the data was exfiltrated from the DNC, but we have indicators that it was exfiltrated. So he's saying, so when does it indicate? He's like, well, it's in the report. And then you scroll down a little bit, and Shawn Henry says, there's times when we can see the data has been hacked, and we can say conclusively, but in this case, regarding the DNC and Russia and the leaked emails, it appears it was set up to be hacked, but we just don't have the evidence that says it actually left. So, in summary, Crowdstrike's conclusion publicly was she was hacked by Russia. But that was publicly. Privately, we actually don't have any evidence she was hacked by anybody. This is significant. I'm not saying she wasn't hacked. I'm saying the company she hired is saying she wasn't hacked. I should be allowed to quote the DNC's cybersecurity company on YouTube. Let's go to March 2019. So the Mueller report is then sent to Attorney General Barr, and the following month, April 2019, a redacted version of the Mueller report is released to the public, which is what we're going to look at, because the conclusion was no collusion, and we're going to look at two different pages. This is justice.gov, which is the Department of Justice. Scroll down. This is the Mueller report, who was investigating Russian interference in the 2016 election. March 2019. So we need to go to page 189 to start. And we're looking at this big paragraph here. So basically he starts off by just clarifying there's no legal term collusion. The legal term is conspiracy. So the office considered in particular whether contacts between the Trump campaign officials and Russia-linked individuals could trigger liability for the crime of conspiracy, not the commonly discussed term collusion. So he says the investigation did not establish that contacts described amounted to an agreement to commit any substantive violation of federal law. Therefore, they did not charge any individual associated with the Trump campaign with conspiracy to commit a federal offense. So that was the conclusion of the Mueller report, was no collusion or no conspiracy to commit a federal crime. Let's also look at page 229, because this is the Trump campaign reacts to WikiLeaks release of the hacked emails. So this little paragraph here says, on June 14th, 2016, a cybersecurity firm that had conducted in-house analysis for the DNC posted an announcement that Russian government hackers had infiltrated the DNC's computer and obtained access to the documents. Who is this cybersecurity firm that the DNC hired to look into the WikiLeaks hacked emails? We'll just look at footnote 19 here. Footnote 19, Crowdstrike. Crowdstrike. This is Crowdstrike publicly announcing that Russia hacked Hillary, but we've already looked at Crowdstrike, that the president of Crowdstrike, Shawn Henry, admitted privately they actually don't have any evidence she was hacked by anybody. And that is all we needed to see in the Mueller report. Let's go to December 2019. Now, as a result of the Mueller investigation going on for a couple of years, they had an initial FISA application that allowed them to spy on the Trump campaign. In addition to the initial application, there were 3 renewals. So there was a total of 4 FISA applications. And since the entire Mueller investigation came up with nothing, the question became, how did you even get the initial application if there was nothing? Wasn't there any initial evidence that allowed you to get it? The Steele dossier? So basically, the Inspector General is an auditor, and specifically Horowitz, the Inspector General, is investigating the FISA warrant issuance. So we are going to look at this from December 2019. This is oig.justice.gov. So OIG is the Office of the Inspector General. Justice.gov is the Department of Justice. And this is IG Horowitz's review of the initial and 3 renewals of the FISA applications regarding FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation. So the investigation into Trump-Russia collusion, which came up with nothing. How did we get this far, even though it came up with nothing? We're going to look at page 16. And this takes a second to load. It's 478 pages. So this paragraph here, conclusions concerning all 4 FISA applications. We're going to look at this second paragraph. We identified at least 17 significant errors or omissions in the Carter Page FISA applications and many errors in the Woods procedures. These errors and omissions resulted from case agents providing wrong or incomplete information to the OI and failing to flag important issues for discussion. In normal people explanation, what they're saying is, in order to get these 4 FISA warrants, there were 17 significant errors or omissions, meaning 17 significant false statements or 17 big things that were omitted, important information that was omitted that led to them obtaining these things that they otherwise would not have obtained. And this sentence right here is very important. So the Inspector General is saying, we did not find documentary or testimonial evidence of intentional misconduct on the part of the case agents. But also, we did not receive satisfactory explanations for the errors or the problems we identified. So this statement right here, the IG Horowitz is saying, yes, there were 17 significant errors and omissions, but we don't think that it was intentional. We think that they were accidentally providing wrong information or incomplete information to the FISA courts to get these warrants. And this highlighted sentence right here, where it says it was not intentional, specifically, John Durham disagrees with that statement. I'm going to show you his statement, and also Attorney General Barr disagrees with that statement. So that was December 2019. IG Horowitz releases his report stating there were 17 significant errors and omissions, but we just don't think that it was intentional. Well, also in December 2019, both Durham and Barr issue statements disagreeing with Horowitz on the conclusion of the beginnings of the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. So let's look at both of their statements. First, we have from justice.gov, Department of Justice, statement of U.S. Attorney John H. Durham. This is the first statement John Durham's making, and it's only 4 sentences, and we're going to read the whole thing. I have the utmost respect for the mission of the Office of the Inspector General and the comprehensive work that went into the report prepared by Mr. Horowitz and his staff. However, our investigation is not limited to developing information from within the component parts of the Justice Department. Our investigation has included developing information from other persons and entities both in the U.S. and outside the U.S. And this is the most important part right here. Based on the evidence collected to date, and while our investigation is still ongoing, last month we advised the Inspector General that we do not agree with some of the report's conclusions as to the predication and how the FBI case was opened. So he's not saying he disagrees that there was massive errors in the applications. He's disagreeing with the report's conclusions as to the predication of how the FBI case was opened. And what did he claim about that? We don't think there was misconduct on the parts of the agents. But we also did not receive satisfactory explanations for the errors or the problems we identified from those agents. So Durham's saying, I disagree with your statement that it was unintentional. And this is also from justice.gov, Department of Justice. This is a statement by Bill Barr on the Inspector General's report of the review of the 4 FISA applications, so the same report of the FISA applications for Crossfire Hurricane. And his is more lengthy, so we're just going to read the part that I think is most important, which is right here. Whoops. Right here. The Inspector General's report now makes it clear that the FBI launched an intrusive investigation of a U.S. presidential campaign on the thinnest of suspicions that, in my view, were insufficient to justify the steps taken. It's also clear that from its inception, so from the beginning of the Crossfire Hurricane investigation, the evidence produced by the investigation was consistently exculpatory, meaning as the investigation into Trump-Russia collusion progressed, any evidence that it did turn up exonerated Trump. That's what Bill Barr is saying. September 2020, that's when the DNI letter that we looked at up here was released in these 2 bullet points. August 2021. So 44 senators sign a letter asking for the Durham report to be made public. We'll take a look at that. This is Senate.gov, August 2021. And basically they're just saying, we want an update on the Special Counsel Durham's inquiry, and we're asking that the investigations report be made available to the public upon completion. And who's asking for this? Senator, plus 40 more senators all sign this. So there's a lot of interest in what Durham is up to. Everyone wants to read that report. And finally, we get to September 2021. A Clinton campaign lawyer has been indicted. So this is from justice.gov, and you might want to bookmark this page. It looks like there's going to be more information that'll get posted here. Specifically, this is justice.gov/SCO-Durham, and I think SCO is Special Counsel's Office. There's 3 things here. We're going to look at the third one. This first thing just looks like it's a letter from Bill Barr, October 2020, talking about when John Durham started his investigation, as well as making John Durham special counsel for the Department of Justice. There's nothing super important in there. This second thing is just a statement of their expenditures for this period of time. And I didn't see anything in there that looked particularly interesting to put in a video. But this last thing here, grand jury indicts D.C. attorney with making false statements to the FBI in 2016 regarding alleged communications between Trump Organization and a Russian bank. And this just happened in September 2021. We'll click this link. Again, we're still on justice.gov. And the person who is just indicted is Sussman. This is the name you see going around because everyone's always excited to see a Durham update. So Sussman is an attorney. And what did Sussman do? Okay, so as alleged in the indictment from 2016, Sussman, he's a lawyer. He met with FBI General Counsel at FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. Sussman had requested the meeting to provide the General Counsel with certain data files and white papers that allegedly demonstrated a covert communications channel between the Trump Organization and a Russia-based bank. Now, Sussman had previously represented the DNC in connection with a cyber hack. He falsely stated to the General Counsel that he was not bringing these allegations to the FBI on behalf of any client. This false representation led to the General Counsel to understand that Sussman was providing information as a good citizen, rather than a paid advocate or political operative. In fact, Sussman assembled and conveyed the allegations to the FBI on behalf of at least 2 clients. So these are 2 of his clients at a minimum. A U.S. technology executive and the Clinton presidential campaign. So the Clinton presidential campaign lawyer was just indicted for lying to the FBI. So that's everything we really needed to cover in this. I'm sure there's going to be more coming out because I think even before I started recording this, there's already more Durham stuff being whispered around about in the news, but I don't want to bring news articles with rumors. I want to wait until Durham actually says something, and then maybe we'll do another video. But I appreciate you watching this. Again, the links are below, and thank you for your time.